So this is my book, Leftover Ribbon. There are copies down in the bookstore. And this book is the story of me becoming a mom and then my experiences, my beginning experiences. I have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old daughters. Luckily, I'm away from them right now. This is the longest I've been away from them, and I love this. So, I'm going to start with my introduction to motherhood. Birthing rights. As my doula cowered in the corner, I sobbed, but if I get an epidural, I've failed. PTSD, no one left to pray to. Harvest time. When you were born, you didn't cry, not right away. Puzzled, you seemed to not ask why about all the pain, the sudden change of scenery. But what now? Lost and in shock, I had nothing to give. So I stared back and thought, you tell me. Your wheat, a piece of chaff in the wind. Ripe pomegranates. Mother becomes my name. This was actually one of the very first pieces I ever wrote when I started writing haiku. Caressing her hair, I sing a lullaby she won't remember. The kindness of strangers. A middle-aged woman smiles at my child who's saying hi to every customer in the coffee shop. She's learning to talk, isn't she? Warm muffins, how my hand slips around the mug. Leftover ribbon. She tells me it's a kite. So when we had our kids, we had no money. We didn't have money for toys. She played with the jars of the baby jar lids that we got from the work office, like we couldn't afford to do stuff. So she had this piece of ribbon that she absolutely loved and told me it was a kite one day. And the magic of her world was perfect for me. So leftover ribbon, she tells me it's a kite. Parenting book. Not the only one without a climax. Thought you guys would like that one. I crack my eggs one at a time. IUD. And for those of you who don't know, that's a birth control device. Teaching manners. Oh, Sisyphus, how I understand. Log burn, not the airplane I used to be. Stay at home mom. I take my sanity out with the trash. And this one I wrote, my husband and I had a date. We went out to the theater and we ran into a group of his friends before the show. I wrote most of this at intermission. Because that's what you do. Lost at sea. What do I say? Have I read a book lately? When was the last time I listened to the news? Do I have yogurt on my shirt? Are my clothes too out of date? What shows are popular now? What movie are they even talking about? Do they think I'm boring? Am I burning up the kids too much? Do I look awkward? When was the last time I plucked my eyebrows? What's in my shoe? Is that a raisin in my shoe? I hope that's a raisin in my shoe. True. Are the kids okay? Did they eat well? Did I pack their toothbrushes? Do they have enough diapers? Do they fall asleep at a decent hour? What are you talking about? Did my husband notice I wasn't paying attention? Was someone telling a joke? Am I a joke? Spin top, how the colors become one. Good enough. I begin to question whether I need organic water, too. Playground stairs, my daughter's unkempt hair flying free. Mom friends, we compare our comparisons. And this piece is one that's very dear to my heart, so I wanted to make sure that I shared this one at my reading today. Present and accounted for. Sitting in the nursery, reading all your current favorites, we sink deeply into one another. This moment, while your whole body still fits snugly into my lap, makes me almost forget. Your weight, your warmth is a balm to my mind. Our embrace, picturesque. I almost forget the pills I take 3 times a day. The days I'm not sure I can do this any longer. The weeks, months, years spent dancing on the edge of madness. Here the seconds expand into lifetimes. I have yet to disappoint you, yet to become someone you no longer recognize, yet to be a source of shame. I am still the one you run to after you fall, still the one you call for in the middle of the night, still Mama. I am not what I was, I'm not what I will be. I am who you believe me to be, safe and sound. Locked door, the one my nurse says, good night. And that's all I have for you guys.
Good evening to all. My book is titled My Journal with Haiku Sprinkled In. I was tempted to call it My Haibun, but then I thought maybe some readers might not know what that is, so I translated Haibun to, a journal with haiku scribbled in. So that's my translation. And why did it start with my? Well, it's a tribute to Kobayashi Issa, who in 1819, another 200-year anniversary for Issa, wrote his great haibun, Oraga Haru, which is My Spring. So originally I thought I should call it My Spring. But then I thought that'd be kind of weird. And so I was imagining if I were to write a haibun the way Issa wrote his My Spring 200 years ago, what would that be like? And then by somewhere in the book, I'm having sort of dialogues with Issa and with the earlier book. So I'll read a few, they're very short chapters, 2 short chapters, and maybe the 3rd chapter would be one that's more about Issa's My Spring. So, all right. So I'm nearsighted, I can read without these. But I didn't like that as a kid because I couldn't see the baseball. And now all these people that can see the baseball, they're asking me to read their prescriptions. You win in the end, maybe. It's all yin and yang. So I know some of you might have been to the Orlando HSA. So this chapter is called Orlando. And so it's just my first Haibun book, so this is it. 3 chapters. Last Friday, I got up, got dressed, grabbed my backpack, and at 5 a.m. sharp, jumped into an SUV filled with poets for a 12-and-a-half-hour road trip to Orlando, where this year's 2nd Quarterly National Haiku Society meeting was scheduled to happen. Get it? National Haiku Society? I can't be sued. I changed it. The conference theme was Haiku and the Beats. I could maybe be sued for that because that was the theme. On Saturday morning, Sam Sanford Well, he knows who he is, but he's not here. One of my NHS presidential predecessors gave a keynote talk on Jack Kerouac. The day's highlight was a picnic trip to the nearby Kerouac house, a neat suburban home with a tiny rear apartment where Jack, then living with his mother, pounded out dharma buns on a well-oiled underwood. It was wondrous. Sitting on the porch where Jack once peeled oranges, hanging out under the oak tree, where Jack once drank and puked. We all felt inspired, churning out haiku after haiku, some of which we later recorded on biodegradable brown paper slips that we tied to the branches of nearby trees, many of them old enough to remember Jack. That night, at a hippy-dippy dive bar, we topped off a pleasant and memorable conference with an open mic poetry reading, IMC'd and emulating Jack, was drunk as a hoot owl. Later, in my room at our budget hotel on Highway 17, you know where this is going, I toasted Jack silently with a nightcap beer, then drifted to dreams. Next morning, I happened to be already up and dressed when the fireman pounded on my door. Turns out, a fellow guest at the hotel had decided to cook methamphetamine, blowing up his bathroom and starting a fire. I and everyone followed the firefighter's commands. We poured out of our rooms and into the parking lot, where a disgusting, plasticky, chemical stench hovered in the air. On the long ride home to New Orleans, delayed 3 hours by cops who would not let us retrieve our bags from our rooms, we wrote no renku. One of the poets, Janet, Googled the words, "Days in meth lab explosion," and got several hits. Hotels all over the land, it seems, where an identical disaster had occurred. I felt sullen, guilty. I'm the one who picked our hotel. Not the nice one, the conference hotel. I was trying to save some bucks. With the help of Expedia.com. Janet, a singer by profession, kept coughing and coughing. Probably not to punish me personally, but I took it that way. I could hardly wait for my small vengeance of filling out Expedia's customer satisfaction survey. When the link arrived a day later, I titled my review, "It was great until the meth lab blew up." In my review, I honestly described the hotel staff as friendly. The rooms were clean. The price was affordable. But just as honestly, I did report the explosion and the fact that the hotel's fire alarm was barely audible. Next day, an email from Expedia arrived informing me that my customer review had been rejected. They didn't give a reason. So take that, Expedia.
There's your
Captain Nemo. Actually, it's Spanish Memo. This is an actual guy. So I used his real name. I didn't mess with his name because you'll see why maybe. I lunch at the home of Memo Vélez, somewhere in the green, steep mountains of Colombia, lush with coffee plantations. On our way here, my pretty hostess, handler, and publisher, Maria Victoria, pointed out flowers one by one out the car window, carefully pronouncing exotic names in Spanish, as if I would, of course, remember them. I do remember the national tree she indicated with particular excitement, a palma de cera, or wax palm, stretching high into the blue. And I'll always remember, after we reached Memo's house, our warm camaraderie over many a bottle of Chilean red at his table, a gaggle of guests chatting in Spanish, including 4 haiku poets, an up-and-coming novelist, a graphic designer, and sundry significant others. In the now-ever, we're still there. I can see all of us when I close my eyes, jabbering about haiku, politics, and Memo's ongoing divorce. Quite an ugly one, it seems, judging by his repetitive, emphatic, and creative uses of the word puta. After we kill the wine in a bottle of dangerous yellow aguardiente, firewater, which indeed burns, and after a hit or two of Memo's choice Colombian pure dope, He leads us on a tour of his nearby sprawling studio, which, he explains, will soon become his domicile when his wife, La Puta, takes possession of the house that, he emphasizes again, he built. By now he's quite drunk, quite stoned, and quite exuberant with gestures, shouting tirades on diverse topics such as shopping malls, of the devil, the art world, sons of whores, and American drone strikes that he claims loudly, looking significantly at me, the only gringo present, create the terrorists below. Memo, I soon learned, is a hardcore Colombian communist who went into exile for 5 years in Portugal back in the day to avoid prison or worse. His opinions gush and flow, his hugs and kisses, picos, strike women and men indiscriminately. At one point, to explain an obscure Spanish expression for my benefit, he unzips his fly and presents his penis uncircumcised, then calmly tucks it back in, continuing his rant. I have no idea what word he was explaining. I like Memo very much. This artist who paints whimsical landscapes and strange faces on his old pants and shirts and hangs them in his studio. Who could imagine that he'll be dead within 1 month? Maria Victoria's husband, Reynaldo, our daredevil driver, who zoomed and whipped us up and down narrow serpentine mountain roads to get us here all in one piece, passing all slower traffic, which meant everyone else, pulls me aside suddenly to inform me that National Geographic photographers, when they want to attract butterflies for nature shoots, pour urine on their hands. Or perhaps he meant to say they pour it on one of their hands, since I'm thinking the hand holding the camera probably doesn't need it. Nearing the end of this lunch party at sunset, I become fascinated with one particular self-portrait of Memo. He instructs me to take it off the wall to look at its back. I do it, and a little bat spills out along with a little cascade of guano. The bat plays dead on the floor for a minute while I admire Memo's rougher, more violent self-sketch on the painting's B side. When one of his 3 yapping little dogs shows up, the bat jerks to life and flies away. Piss in my hand, I await my butterfly. Green Ridge, a palma de serra straight to God, swishing their tails to the ballad's beat, horses. And since this is the time up, but I realized I didn't read the haiku at the end of the first Haibun. So I'm just, go back in your minds, imagine I'm reading about Orlando. And okay, and here's the haiku. It was on the, I didn't turn the page. Okay, so the last thing I said there was, yeah, Expedia didn't give a reason. And here's the haiku, I'll end with this. Kerouac House, the sound of one hand typing. Our guy distracted, a quick dump in Jack's toilet. A bedroom in Florida's muggy intestine, his cosmos mind. Trembling daisies, the world treats poets like shit. Thank you.
My book is called Even Song on the Great Egg. My reason for writing haiku is to create a resonating piece of art. The key to create something lasting that has poignancy, but also is not too highly worded in any way. Simple is best, and less is more. An ant's journey is just as lofty when it is doing what it was made to do as when something exciting like a meteor shower or eclipse happens. Scent of lupine, the underside of leaves, right next to the stars. The brevity and sensitivity with which these poemlets are constructed are witty and full of awareness that lead us on the path of appreciating, experiencing, and perceiving the grace and commonality we all share inside one pure and precise moment. Delicate breeze dances across old petals, opening night. It is incredibly important to allow the reader this space and breath to come to a conclusion on their own. One would want the conclusion of the reader or listener to arrive at their own summation, even if that does not include your intended meaning. Gull's wing dips below sunset, taking on the moon. My book, Evensong on the Great Egg, is a short work of haiku based on the Great Egg River, near which I live. It is an oasis of gulls, hawks, jays, and cardinals, as well as fish, rabbits, crafty squirrels, and crazy northeast weather. I tried to keep the haiku spirit and write about those moments that have meaning, but also have something to say. You can write a haiku, but will anyone want to read it? Cricket speak soaks the bark of pine barrens. This is where my walks along the nature trail near my home comes in. Over half a century ago, it had been a train crossing that crossed over the low end of the Great Egg River. Hurricane Sandy has since taken out the bridge, leaving it to nature lovers waving at each other from opposite ends of the bridge. Bird feeder sways with the weight of summer thunder. Thank you.
Hi, I'm David Oates, and heavy rain. Once again, the creek has stolen the footbridge. Shooting baskets outside after a long rain, a missed basket. The ball goes bounce, bounce, splat. On the book's back cover, the smile of an author, now dead. Cut roses by the young man's grave, blooms still fresh. Little dogwood tree, only one bloom. 11-year-old meets newborn brother. Take him back, he squeaks. She also called him Fester, because he looked bald at first. He had very sparse blonde hair. Icy day in the coffee house John, pina colada scent. I say broccoli, and the Cracker Barrel waiter says, good choice. You have no idea how many people didn't understand why I thought that. I appreciate y'all. At the funeral, we have these promises from God. We have them in writing. Bed and breakfast host, please stop talking and show me my room. Between customers, the man at the drive-thru singing. Deaf men eating lunch, signing with one hand full, the big one. And it's like you talk with your mouth full. 400-pound woman grocery shopping. Everyone is watching her choices. Kmart race car ride. As it runs, the steady clacking, the coin return flap. Thunderstorm behind the massage parlor, half an apple. In the bathroom of the natural food store, fruit flies courting. Someone has suggested a different gerund. In the dark, trying to kiss her, lips meet eye. Not just holding hands, hands dancing. Maternity ward, woman sucks her thumb while nursing her newborn. After nursing, the baby's face striped from the mother's ribbed sweater. Baby sleeping, the heat of her breath on my shoulder. Winter evening, between a Mercedes and a Geo, the cat chooses the warm one. After all these years watching the old dog's last breath. The dog slowly but surely house trains us. He signed the urinal screen with a flourish. Good for you, man. Dry cleaner on his left shirt sleeve, 20 spot stickers. He was so schizophrenic, his name and Mom's phone number are tattooed on his hand. Georgia grocery store, Mexican and Hispanic are separate aisles. This yoga pose, belly in the way. In a shared bathroom, he washes his hair off the soap. Such hosts in the guest bathroom, a rubber duck. On a box of flounder, although fish have been filleted, small bones may occur. It's kind of like the warning of side effects on the drug ads. Death may occur. I heard a song from the Austin Lounge Lizards where they did a parody of a drug commercial, and they said, if death occurs, discontinue use. Someone says the old days were better. Appendix scar. Among the brown leaves, green leaf-shaped cardia ring. Daughter in recital costume, reading with me, gold sequin on my shirt. Little girl in the ballet, as she waits for her next turn, lips move. 2, 3. Front baby tooth loose, biting into an apple, something gives. Little pencil marks recording children's growth, the house we're leaving. Following fire truck into our street, did I turn off the stove? Months of Nutcracker rehearsals, 2 performances, and months of earworms. And I'm going to skip to the end and do the last ones. Empty cocktail lounge, player piano playing, piano man. In the hall, late at night, footsteps. Next up, Julie Warther. Julie.
It's the 11th book in the New Resonance series by Red Moon Press, featuring 17 emerging voices in English language haiku, 6 of which are here this evening to read for you. So we have Terri French. If you could just kind of raise your hand when I say your name so they know who you are. Tia Haynes, Brent Goodman, Joshua Gage, Lou Watts, and Sandy Prey. They're just going to read sort of a modified round-robin style. Just be listening as they're reading for each of those unique voices as they go along.
How are you supposed to do this?
He brings flowers the same shade, bruises. Gardenia blossoms at the border of a repressed memory. Knit one, pearl two, grandma lets a secret slip. Cowbird's song, an adopted child brought home. Autumn morning, the shape of a grandchild beneath the quilt. Starry night, we make up our own constellations.
Family secrets. A fly chooses the butter. Dandelions. All the little white lies between us. Morning hike. An unexpected turn in our conversation. Cliff's edge. The fence post, knees in. Support group. I never know where to put my hands. The clock's out of sync. Therapy session.
Milkweed pod, even if we fell in love. Learning to weave one breath between us, the long night. First house, we carry our reflection up the stairs. Across the river, the other side of my family. Vietnam, my father's given name. Horseradish cheddar, sweet white grapes after his funeral.
Scratchy 78, the A train syncopates past my apartment. A sax solo from the corner, the lightness of my bus fare. Muted trumpet, a magnolia sunset in the low stage lights. Whiskey tumbler, full of minor chord changes. A dry Manhattan, another night spent in Tunisia.
Slow descent, this sudden urge to share life stories. Home from war, we ease out the champagne corks. His secret closet unbecoming a man. Sickle moon, the old priest whispers, me too. Mobius strip, the topology of tumble-dry bras. Ice settles in a morning scotch, things fall into place.
A lifetime of grass in my hair, prairie wind, migrating cranes until mountains come between us. Wing beats, sometimes just knowing I'm not alone. Blue feathers, all but the song in my hand. With an answer for everything, the tree of crows. Frog song, a heron's shadow takes the last note.
Okay, this is round two. Ash Wednesday, a whole congregation with the same thumbprint. Winter gray, a full spectrum lamp for my half-assed mood. Lingering fog, a pair of reading glasses in every room. Hangover, a mosquito comes back for hair of the dog. Easter morning, and I can't even get out of bed. You got that one very quickly.
A doe full with fawn, spring thaw. The earth's curve, entering the room belly first. Late night bottle, how our rocking becomes a prayer. Stretch marks every road that's led to you. Morning cartoons, I shake out the last pill.
Father's Day, I cast a spinnerbait into a tree. Spider unfolding with the lawn chair, family reunion. Unable to articulate any further, the ocean. The flashing stone out of water fades into my hand, misreading the line where consciousness begins.
Spring moon, his trumpet's slurred notes against the train's backbeat. Satin dress, the way her voice blues the melody. Downtown commute through snow flurries, the soft glow of brake lights. Amtrak, the rituals of strangers.
18th birthday. Our son graduates to 2 syllables. His old Lego set, if I swallow, I'll choke. Old photograph, my son asked why my mother married me. Wild juniper, the way she was after gin. Picking at threads of a worn seam, still not forgiven.
Empty places, the sound of wind finding them. Raindrops, the first few notes of an old song. Evening jam, a banjo picks through the wind. Sumi lesson, my world has become a bamboo shoot. Riverwalk, in my hand the stone too lovely to skip.
Autumn winds, campaign signs, shifting positions. Reconstructing a field mouse, owl pellets. Winter solstice, a folded napkin beneath the table leg. Spring thaw, an ice shanty leans into the melt.
Dusk, a discarded umbrella gathers rain. Memorial service, searching for meaning in the carpet. After packing, a quiet embrace. Mother's passing, how I found my voice.
Green corn moon, finding the way home again through my childhood. My body turns the Milky Way back into water. Singing a while without realizing it, the Pleiades. Walking across the White River, Easter morning.
Sunflower, the chickadee shifts its grip. Abandoned factory, Seagulls gather on the frozen river. Autumn twilight, the last pill sticks to my tongue.
Retirement day. I move spam to my inbox. Post-vasectomy. This primal urge to over-punctuate. Gone to her mother's. Another lemon pit misses the ashtray. Trial separation. Another inch of snow on the gin bottles.
August heat, the sound of no one behind me. Only the clicking of dragonfly wings, hospital garden. Slow afternoon, a clerk wipes nothing from the window. Autumn twilight, the sky unsays everything.
That's everything for us. Okay, so anyway, I want to read you the preface of my book so you understand where I'm coming from, because it's a little different. It's not traditional Haibun. So here's the preface. When my boys were little and wanted attention, they would often poke my arm, muttering, "Mom, Mom, Mom," you know that one, continuously, until I would turn to them and in a motherly, although somewhat exasperated tone say, "What do you want, son?" It was much this way when 11-year-old J.T. Blankenship first came to me. He was relentless, sometimes pestering me in the middle of the night. Finally, I asked the little boy, jabbing at my brain, "What do you want?" And he answered, "My name is Jared Travis Blankenship, and I want to tell you a story." Well, JT didn't just tell me one story. He told me many over the course of several years. At times, there were long spells when he wouldn't visit, and I missed him. The people whom I shared the stories with missed him, and they asked for more JT stories. But what they didn't understand, and frankly, what I couldn't quite wrap my own head around, was that I couldn't just write them, he had to tell them to me. I lost my place. JT and I did discuss, however, that our book was a team effort, and therefore I would add my haiku and senryu to his stories. And he said he was okay with that, although I'm not quite sure he was ever really taken with my little poems. I don't hear from my little friend much anymore. My guess is he's growing up, discovering girls, and has better things to do than sit around chatting with some old woman from another time. I hope he'll stop by someday and let me know how he's doing. I've grown quite fond of the kid. So you may be asking, is JT real? And are these stories true? Well, they are to me, and my hope is that they are to you. And so welcome to the world of JT Blankenship. And I'm going to read 2 of JT's stories mixed with my haiku senryu. You'll be able to tell the difference because JT is speaking his story and I'm speaking my haiku senryu. I'm a little weird, I channel. The first one's called A Matter of Taste. I don't much like Brussels sprouts. I tell Mama they taste like giant boogers. Of course, she replies, "And just how do you know what a booger tastes like?" Well, I have eaten some pretty disgusting things, including a cricket one time when I chose the dare and I should have chosen the truth, and an orange crown, which in my opinion was mislabeled because it didn't taste nothing like no orange. But let me make it clear right here now that I ain't never ate my own boogers. A kid in my class, Peter Wells, he eats his own boogers. The boys call him Peter, Peter, the booger eater, and the girls all run from him screaming. He's a pretty nice kid when he's not chomping on greenies. And he's a heck of a ball player. He knocks that ball clear out to the outfield every time. I reckon it's because he's got sticky fingers and they got a good grip on the bat. Anyway, he's not really a friend of mine, but I just hate to see anyone made fun of, and so I thought I could help the kid out anonymously. My papaw's got a drawer full of bandanas, all neatly ironed and folded into perfect squares. He carries 2 of them in the pockets of his coveralls every day. A blue one on the right to blow his nose in, and a red one on the left to mop his sweaty bald head when he's been out working in the field all day. It's a pretty good system. It keeps him from wiping snot all over his head. Since he has more kerchiefs than Carter's has liver pills, I didn't reckon it would hurt if I took one of the more faded ones. So I stuffed one in my brown paper lunch sack along with a note I scrawled with my left hand so as to disguise my usual penmanship. Peter, please use this bandana for your boogers. Signed, a friend. I know he said he wasn't my friend, but it just seemed the proper way to end a note. So the next day, as everyone lined up for lunch, I lagged behind and snuck that bag into his desk. Long division. What to do with what remains. Peter particularly liked to pick his nose during math tests. The harder the test was, the more boogers made the short trip from his nose to his mouth. One day, the teacher surprised us with a pop quiz on long division. I was conducting a little test of my own. Would Peter use the bandana? As long division was particularly hard for me, I didn't have time to spy on him, but about a quarter of the way through the test, I heard the creak of his desk being opened. "Peter, what are you doing?" asked Miss Abernathy. He held up the bandana. "Nothing," he said, "just getting out my handkerchief," which caused every kid in the class to stare at him as he stuck his index finger up into the bandana and shoved it up his nose. He gave his finger a couple of twists, pulled it out, examined the contents, and carefully folded it and put it back into his pocket. Now, I'm not going to tell you I never saw Peter eat another booger, but I did notice a few weeks later he had a brand new red bandana sticking out of his pocket. One day soon, I'm going to ask him if he likes Brussels sprouts, just to prove a point to Mama. Lunchroom wars, a fork full of peas flung across the room. And do I have time for one more? Who's mine? Okay. This one's called Keepers, title of the book. And just a little prelude, I wrote this in honor of the man who taught my boys how to fish. Keepers. We just got back from Carnis's visitation. Me, Daddy, and Mama was the only white folks there. Most white folk couldn't give 2 licks about an old black man dying. But Carnis was my friend. He's the one who taught me how to cane pole fish when I was just a half pint. The black folk could be found fishing off the Somerville Bridge nearly every day come spring. Whole families would gather out there. Barefoot children run around laughing, and old folks sitting on upturned plastic pickle buckets they pulled from the pig stand barbecue trash. Daddy let Carnis fish our pond on account of Carnis had once saved him from drowning when he was young. But he mostly fished for bream and sometimes snagged a snapping turtle that he'd take home to his wife, who cleaned it and turned it into soup, which sounds downright disgusting to me. Skimming stones, a skull ring on his wranglers. Whenever Carnis pulled into the driveway, Daddy let me jump into the truck bed and ride with him down to the pond at the back of our pasture. Just before my 5th birthday, he bought me a 6-foot cane pole that had been his boy's when he was little. He said it was high time I quit gawking at him and learnt to fish. First, he rigged his own pole, which was twice as long as mine. Carnes always brought along his rusted red tackle box that held line, corks, black electrical tape, scissors, pliers, hooks, and bandages, which I didn't reckon were for the fish. Sunday morning, a Jesus bug walks on water. We threw our lines out near the fallen willow tree because Carnes said that Brain liked to find them some hidey holes around weeds and stumps and such. Crickets are Brain's favorite food, but small grasshoppers will do in a pinch. Carnes made me bait my own hook. I still remember the crunch when that hook went through that bug's belly. I was happier than a tick on a fat dog when I pulled out my first fish. To my 5-year-old eyes, that fish was a whopper. But Carnes said she wasn't a keeper and made me throw her back. Let her get some meat on her bone, son. Your mama don't want no scrawny-ass fish in her frying pan. I was plenty ill with Carnes that day, but we caught plenty of keepers in the years we fished together. I reckon our friendship was the biggest keeper of all. I sure am gonna miss that old man. Tent revival. The preacher gets tongue-tied.
I have the good fortune to be able to share with you recent works from Lanoue Press by 7 different poets. If Bill had been here, I would have put him on the spot and said, Bill, you're here, read your own book. But I will start with him. Since I don't have that much time, and since I have 7 books, I'm going to read only a couple of poems from each. But to me, the variety of voice that comes from each of these books, I hope I represent each of them well in that way. And I think one of the things that these various books do is suggest to us how broad the umbrella of haiku is. Just as JT, is it JT? JT is kind of a new venue for haiku, I might say. That was a different take on haiku than I've seen in a while. So, haiku is so capacious. Here are some more voices that I hope you appreciate. Starting with Bill's book. Bill's book is called Moon Music. Bill has published, I think this is his 5th book with Lanoue Press. And he's a very interesting man. He's an academic, but you wouldn't know it. He's been the dean of a major university, but you wouldn't know it. So, his book is divided into 6 parts. I'm going to read one poem from each of the parts. The foal and I, on nodding terms, early daffodils. Beak to beak, a tender strand of trout. Slow carousel, the toddler hugs a raised hoof. Ball 4, the catcher adjusts his knee. Having been a catcher, I appreciate that. 3 a.m., the foot in search of a slipper. And finally, steam room, thinking less and less about less. Marsh, Muirhead. His book is called Last Night at the Carnival. When it lands on, the sound of rain. Black dirt under my fingernails. Still no wife. The first time she doesn't offer to split the bill. means that goes so many ways. Last night of the carnival, the tilt-a-whirl, whirling, empty. Rebecca Lilly, who has also had 5 books with Red Moon Press. This one is called Walking Just a Little Water. Rebecca has a very philosophical turn to her haiku, talking about how JT is taking it in one philosophical direction. Rebecca takes it in quite a more academic and normative philosophical direction, but she does it in a really interesting way. She's using a pair of voices here, and I'll try to represent the voices slightly differently so you know. And she uses the spread as her basic unit. So in this spread, there are 2 poems by one voice and 1 poem which is not exactly a haiku, but is something like a haiku and is something like a commentary. You could look at it as sort of a Socratic dialogue. Water evaporates from field mud. This oddness, observing myself. The experience of versus it being this witness of elements, of freedom from deeper desire. The images, feelings of leaf dust. Barely perceptible rings of pond bugs. Pleasant just to be sitting. Dandelions, grass scents in gentle rain. My late life, unexamined. Scraps of rock, troubled where I'm from. Ditch dug to live the beyond. Silence behind the sound of wind over grasses. Some gap in myself. This is a piece of the Berlin Wall by Marcus Larsson. Marcus is a Swedish poet, I think has a rather unique voice. I'm going to read a few of these. And I think his voice comes through pretty clearly. Some of these voices in the book is the unit, and that's how you would get to know them more. But I think Marcus's would be kind of available right away. Easy climb, the way my son looks after me. Twilight, we promise our son we'll never divorce. Our life vests have gotten too small. Indian summer. I have a life vest like that. Warm winds, we ask a younger couple where we are. Auschwitz, everyone stays close to the guide. I segue that into Auschwitz, a simile, a collection of haiku in 4 languages: Italian, the original Italian, English, Hebrew, and German, written by the poet Toni Piccini from Italy. These are difficult poems, and the voice will be obvious right away, and I'm only going to read them in the English. This book is the book is the unit, and this is a series of reimaginings of situations, all drawn on actual circumstances. They're pretty grim, as you might well imagine. Beneath the skin, a tattoo of nothing but numbers. Slavic hymns in the convoys. Ghost of an echo. This one may need a little gloss. As you know, many experiments were tested on undesirable people. This is one that you'll know what the test is right away, but just so you know, that's the context. Blue ink syringe. The twins' eyes remain brown. Of the two sisters, I talk with the dead one, the echo of the stones. This is a brave book in Italy these days because people who are espousing these positions are under siege and often violently so. A much lighter book from another Italian and on a theme that maybe saves us from that. This is a book by Lucia Fontana. It's called Lunedì un girasole, Sunflower Moon. I'll read the English again. And this is a book about love. Swallow's flight. Finally, my resilience. And I will play the page up too fast. Her little fist inside my hand, holding the sun. Let it go. At the riverside, I'd like to learn. A stone arch in the front of the sea. I enter the sky. And I'll close with Alice Frampton's latest book. Alice is a long-standing haiku poet who then went away from haiku for 10 years and has just come back. She has an interesting, very plain-spoken voice. I think that will be pretty obvious. It is what it is. Molehill. An old war on today's news, autumn evening. To be or not to be, winter. Inhaling a part of her, spring baby. There's probably a key, spring baby. And closing, the theme of every haiku conference. Cherry blossoms. Where do we go from here? Thank you.
I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and this book attempts to capture some of my memories as a child all the way through adulthood. And as a book that's about a life, there's things in there that are happy, sad, funny, and I'll just read you some of it. There are very short haibuns, some sequences, and some individual poems. As you might imagine, there are some sad and some not so sad. But we'll start out with one here, I think. It's called Loss. My 5th grade teacher was Sister Mary Christopher. I had a crush on her. She was younger than all the other nuns and played kickball with us at recess. She let me clean the erasers after class. They never said what happened. First day of school, most of the globe is blue. So this next one is called Achievement Test. I was a good student, not all A's, but still above average. The note from my teacher said that I would have to work harder in order to reach my full potential. I thought how sad it would be to reach one's full potential. Carnival ride, a line of kids stretching, to be this tall. Sad one, sorry. Support system. In elementary school, the nuns assigned desks in alphabetical order. I spent my first 8th grade sitting behind the same kid. We became best friends. He told me that sometimes his mom drank too much. He tried to hide the bruises on his arms. Back to back on the treehouse floor, blood brothers. This is the first poem in a section about girls. It's also the longest section, I think. It's called Dawn. Our family vacationed every year in a cottage on a small lake in Michigan. My uncles, aunts, and cousins all stayed in other cottages nearby. Mostly it was a loud and fun time, but for me the best times were when Dad took me out fishing early in the morning before anybody else got up. We didn't talk much. It was a quiet and special time. Oars up. Dad asked what I know about girls. This is a sequence called The Owl's Query. Blind date, the way she says tomato. Peekaboo moon, she answers my question with a question. Supermoon, she fails to mention her dark side. Autumn leaves, the number of ways to say it's over. Moonless night, the owl's query echoes in my dreams. Sad one. First suit. The smell of flowers so thick it's hard to breathe. Where do they come from anyway? Everyone talking in whispers. A clip-on tie keeps me from loosening my collar. Mom says, just sit still and be quiet. The last jar of Grandma's preserves, winter rain. This is called Don't Make Me Stop the Car. Our family had a station wagon. It had 3 rows of seats. Dad drove, Mom rode shotgun. My brothers and I were divided in the other 2 rows, 2 boys per row. Trips always started out well, singing songs, playing I Spy. But after a while, boys will be boys. Sun-bleached billboard. The gravel road ends at Peaches. Here's one, Kama Sutra. You want to know what this is about? We tried for years to have children. We tried everything. Nothing seemed to work. But still, we had hope. Ellis Island. My father winds his father's watch. This one is a sequence called Cotton Candy Sky. Dining al fresco, the touch of a toe under the table. Pregnancy test, I count the days since the harvest moon. She tells her doctor, we'd rather not know. Cotton candy sky. Hurricane season, our list of baby names grows short. First breath, a sound no one knew I could make. Lullaby moon, baby form, warms my wrist. And then one from the epilogue in Bandanna. No one said that it would be easy, growing up, being a good husband, good father, good brother, good son, good friend. Some days are cloudy, some days are sunny. The joy in life comes from striving to make the most of each one. All tucked in, her music box ballerina spins to a stop.
I'm Lori. This is my book, Ink Blots, Revealing My Story to the Therapist, which is all Japanese short forms about my struggles with mental illness. I would like to read the introduction, and then I will read a mix of Tanka, Senryu, and Haibun. Age 9, begins therapy and meds. Age 10, stops all treatment. Age 12, second dose of therapy, med changes. Age 14, suicide attempt, inpatient, med changes. Age 14, agrees to long-term outpatient therapy with new therapist, new psychiatrist, caseworker, and mentor. Age 17, med changes. Age 18, patient's decision to stop meds in all outpatient programs. Age 21, refuses meds, agrees to individual and group therapy. Age 22, agrees to meds. Age 23, stops all treatment. Age 24, suicide attempt, outpatient therapy, new meds. Age 24, stops all treatment. Age 26, managing, barely. Signs of depression. The first leaf falls to my feet. Diagnosis. The last leaf still holding on. Freak show. My mom always told me God never makes mistakes. Well, here I am. His one major design flaw set on display for all the world to see. Waxing moon, I settle into my bruises. Oblivion. I'm 22, depressed, and I hate my life. I haven't checked my final grades because I know I'm failing out of college. Not like I can take out more loans anyways. So I take another shot of vodka as my laughter blends in with the crowd. Surrounded by friends. Nobody notices I'm writing my suicide note. Butterfly effect. I survive my attempt. Before the rape, he assures me it's okay. A beetle chews through the leaf. Showering for the first time in weeks, I scrub off what's left of my depression. Cicada husks, I don't speak up about the rape. Rose-tinted glasses. I am fat because I was told I am fat. I am ugly because society says that I am. I am fat and ugly because my beauty is less than the standard. I can't help but wonder how I would feel about myself if the world was taught free thinking instead of conditioning. Anorexia, I starve myself of value. Releasing the firefly from my palm, 1 year free from self-harm. Holes. The most vulnerable pieces of me are found tucked away in the crevices of my bedroom. It's the dirty bra tossed in the closet, the food wrapper pushed between the mattress and the wall, the empty wine bottle in the dresser, and the blood-stained panties kicked under the bookshelf. Old teddy bear, all the wounds I can't hide. Skewed beauty, I decide what's good enough. And the last one is erasing the stigma. I clean the dirt from under my nails. Thank you.
Hello. I'm going to talk about my book. Some of the pieces are a bit too lengthy, so I'm not going to read the actual stuff here. Come to our seminar presentation, I will read some of it there. Starting with the title, Mind Zaps. Poet Allen Ginsberg used to call me Alan Mind Zapper. I sent him some of my poems, and he wrote me back these postcards too. Alan Mind Zapper. So given the content of this book, which is humor, poetry and humor, I thought it would make a good title. It starts out with a quote by Artemis Ward. Quote, Homer is dead, Dante is dead, Shakespeare is dead, and I'm not feeling so well myself. Has anyone here ever heard of Artemis Ward? One person. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes his quote even funnier. Actually, Artemis Ward was America's first stand-up comedian. He was also very good friends with Walt Whitman and Mark Twain, and he was President Abraham Lincoln's favorite humorist. The book is in 6 sections. The first is Dueling Connoisseurs, which is a one-act play, which is narration, has 2 characters. It has Senu that are translated into Italian by Luca Samisi, who did a fabulous job in his Italian translations. If you're going to have your poems translated in whatever language, be sure that the translator is familiar with haiku so they can capture all those little nuances that are there. So it's a one-act play. I don't think anything has really been done like that before, but here it is, folks. Next, there's a fractured fairy tale, short fairy tale based on, it's a satirical parody based on Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. And there are a lot of illustrations in here that act as a sort of graphic novel kind of thing. These were among the first cartoon cells that were made of the original Snow White. And they fit so perfectly with the prose, with the Senu prose, that you would think I wrote the prose around the illustrations, but it's quite the other way around. The next section is Senu Magazine, which is a complete parody, satire of an entire poetry magazine, where I write all the poems under all these different crazy pseudonyms. And it has an editor's introduction, it has a museum of Senu literature awards, Senu tunes, a bunch of Senu poems, featured poet, book reviews, books received across the editor's desk, and letters. And there's been some new works that were added to that. It's been expanded. Next piece is called Trailer Trash, the letters of Edmo Dewey, which is pretty wild, out-of-the-box stuff. A lot of intentional misspellings, because Edmo is such an idiot. But he's a very, a very funny piece. I didn't think anyone would ever publish this piece. It has some expletives in there and this, that. Bruce Boynton came to my house to interview me and Donna and says, you gotta let me print this. And I said, it'll never happen. And he made it happen. And again, this has been expanded somewhat as well.
Who published that? I'm just saying.
What's that?
Who published that?
Right. Let me mention. Terri.
He was going to mention you.
It was rejected, just like I thought. There was an interim editor there, and so I told Bruce. I said, "See this? What did I tell you?" And then Terri came along and apparently liked it and had the guts to publish it. There's another section in here that has very serious Senu that are not humorous at all. That's called breaking news. And finally, there is a complete story that is a graphic novel story of a Japanese Senu samurai with Japanese translations in there, and it's about Toshiro Shokan, was a Samari warrior who on a whim in 1789 left his hermitage in Edo and traveled across Japan seeking peace, friends, and sending poetry. Legend had it that he grew weary of war and sought a new life as a poet wanderer. And this is one of his stories. And again, great, beautiful old Japanese woodblock prints are throughout the stories. Kind of a bit of a parody satire, Okinawa Samishi Basho kind of. But I'm really so delighted with the responses that I've gotten from this book. People tell me we're drinking hot chocolate and it spewed out of their nose when I left. And I said I got the only chocolate-covered copy of the book. Carol McCurry couldn't get it out of the hands of her husband, even though she bought the book. Michael Board said he left so loud, he woke up all of his neighbors, and I'm getting all these wonderful comments. And those are the best comments I can get, because the gift of humor is the greatest gift that you can give anyone. And so if this will make you laugh, then it's been worth all the hard work that I put into it. Thank you very much.
First of all, I want to say thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm going to read from A Turn in the River, my second collection of haiku. It was just published recently in June by Jim at Red Moon Press. It's organized by season, and I always start with summer. Silence, a few dots on the moth's wing. Silence, a few dots on the moth's wing. Shallow pond, a muskrat swims through the sun. Inhale, all the pine forests I've ever known. I was walking in a local pine forest and took a big whiff, and I remembered all the pine forests, like the pine barrens in New Jersey, the White Mountains, the sense of memory, and the sense of smell. Inhale, all the pine forests I've ever known. Early summer, a toddler leans over the minnow bucket. No cell reception, the fungal networks of tree roots. And that was kind of ironic, because I'm the last person I know without a cell phone. Are there any others here? All right. Daylilies. A garden pinwheel starts and stops. This is a one-liner. Pond still, no punctuation. Pond, still no punctuation. Summer evening, a breeze finds your kiss on my neck. I wrote this while vacationing on Cape Cod last year. Turns chasing turns, the perpetual surf. After the fighter, a goldfinch recaptures the sky. After the fighter, a goldfinch recaptures the sky. Tossing field stones into a wheelbarrow. Summer days. A bowl of sun golds, last day of August. If you don't know what sun golds are, those the orange cherry tomatoes that taste like candy. A bowl of sun golds, last day of August. Late summer, bittersweet crowds the jewelweed. I've always thought that bittersweet and jewelweed are the perfect haiku words, because they have that internal juxtaposition ready-made. Late summer, bittersweet crowds the jewelweed. Our drive to the coast, 3 hawks long. Our drive to the coast, 3 hawks long. For the wind, milkweed. I've lived on Turkey Hill for 20 years, and for the first 17, we never saw wild turkeys. Wild turkeys on Turkey Hill, sunflower sun. Fallen leaves, no one passes by quietly. Next one I wrote while driving through Idaho on the way to Yellowstone National Park. High over hay bales, hawk thermals. Fall migration, a cross-country team flies past me. Windless sky, feathers missing from a vulture's wings. First frost, a storm window snaps into place. First frost, a storm window snaps into place. Midterm elections, a ballot box gets dragged across the floor. For its vines, an old shed still stands. A turn in the river, preening swans. A turn in the river, preening swans. Pouring rain, the first longer day, a bit shorter. New Year's Eve, the waitress asks if we want change. A black seed under the chickadee's foot, winter morning. A black seed under the chickadee's foot, winter morning. Writing journal, the reverse imprint of yesterday's poems. Winter day moon, geese crowd a crescent of open water. Judging a haiku contest, judging myself. A wan sky, the pond swanless. This was written at a local reservoir where there are swans most of the time, but not always. A wan sky, the pond swanless. Deep winter, I dump warm laundry up to your smile. A flash of sunlight, the skaters ate. Winter sun, a crow gives in to the wind. Winter sun, a crow gives in to the wind. And if you live in New England like I do, you learn how to shovel snow. Leaning on my snow shovel, a faint crescent moon. I'm an elementary school teacher, so my students give me plenty to write about. Free choice time. A fourth grader draws corporate logos. Spring. The dead owl, mostly soil. Sadly, a screech owl died in my backyard, but I'm hoping that it lives a little longer through this poem. Spring. The dead owl, mostly soil. You don't know until it's past. Last frost. You don't know until it's past. Last frost. Old rock wall. Tumbled stones show their lighter sides. Day moon. Last night's garlic still on my fingers. A low sky. Window frames set out with the trash. Briefly, a butterfly, stone mile marker. The this one's set at the same reservoir I mentioned earlier. In the midst of Orioles, May. In the midst of Orioles, May. The one-liner. The bed I'm not sleeping in, moonlight. Recess duty. The kids call for my crow call. If you want to hear it, I'll do it outside sometime. Garden stone. A last raindrop completes the darkness. Spring recess. The chains of her swing parallel the ground. Turning the key, the solace of you. Turning the key, the solace of you. Thank you very much.
Well, I don't have any books to show you. My book is in the bookstore. I had a book on the flight, Southwest Airlines, dropped a cup of coffee on myself and my next door neighbor, and she cleaned me up, and I thought, well, the only thing I can do for her is give her my book. So I gave her my copy that I had. And then Southwest Africa themselves, I had 3 in my overnight luggage, and I was going there. Well, I said, well, if I give her one, I have 3 in the luggage. Well, my underwear is traveling between Dallas and Houston, and we hope that it will land one day and come to this hotel. I have a book called Hurricane Harvey Loku, and it's about my experiences in Hurricane Harvey. I was one of those people that got flooded by the dam release, and I'm a compartmentalizer. I can forget floods and focus on haiku, believe it or not. One thing though, I came here in 2017 with the first book. It was called Haiku Bouillabaisse. And I discovered, being among all of you very astute people, that I wasn't writing haiku, I was writing loku. So that is why the second collection of poetry is called Hurricane Harvey Loku. I have 5 sections, and the sections deal with the phases you go through with the flood and all the other events. So I'm not going to read the actual loku, but because my book is each page with a loku and then a research narrative, I'm going to kind of describe some of the narratives because I think it's going to be more fun to hear. The first section is called Risk, and the poem that I thought you would like is a poem called Looters. And I'm always fascinated by inventive people, people that don't do the traditional. Although I walk right inside the line. 78 years old, never been arrested. So I know how to stay right over there, but I love those people that are over on that side there. So we have a bayou that was the floods towards in my neighborhood. Actually, almost all of Houston was covered with water. But this bayou has a lot of fancy houses on it. And our looters in Houston decided the smart way to loot was not to drive up in a big black van and take TVs out the front door. So what happened is we had our looters get boats, and they floated down the bayou, and of course the police were on the street, which is the front of the house, and the bayou's the back of the house. So you go up the back, go up the lawn, take a good lawn chair, smash the door, go in, get what you gotta get, load your boat. Now, we shouldn't be so critical of that, because you gotta remember that Jean Lafitte, one of America's most favorite pirates, actually did a lot of his work out of Galveston, which is our kind of neighbor city to the south. So pirating is not new in Houston. So that poem, Looters, I thought was kind of intriguing. Then there was a second one from the section called Rescue. And in this one, it's called Street Tea. And it's called Street Tea because what you have in street tea is a lot of floating material. And in this particular poem, I point out some of it was previously flushed. So this is very unique floating material. And I had to get out in a kayak to escape my flooded house. And that was the thing that kind of made it really hard, having to get in that water. And of course, they came with little kayaks. And I don't know how many of you are fans of Alexander McCall Smith, who has the lady in Botswana, who's the detective. She talks about traditional sized ladies. And I happen to be a traditional sized lady. So when the kayak came, they had these little Boy Scouts that pull your kayak, one person per kayak. And I got in the kayak, and I'm looking at all of this water and all of its floaters. And when I get in and sit down, the kayak sinks. We were in shallow water, so it wasn't too bad, but I had to, it's kind of uncomfortable sitting in water up to your waist while you're getting pulled by a couple of Boy Scouts to the sidewalk. Then the third section is called Recovery, and we deal with how one comes back from such an event as a flood. And sometimes you have to see the beauty in it, and one of the beauties in floods is that it leaves mold. You say, oh, that's not a good thing to leave. But in this case, the mold is very, very beautiful. It comes in colors, blues, greens, it's pastels and some grays and browns. But it looks like Picasso has visited your house. So if you think about your mold as being actually artistic, it makes it a little pleasant. You can deal with it a bit, but you still got to get rid of it because it's toxic. We don't like mold, but it was something to see when we initially came into the house. Restoration is the fourth section, and this poem is about mattresses. And what happened is that mattresses became very valuable because you can't really sleep on a wet mattress if you think about it. It's not pleasant. So many houses had floods that mattresses had been pretty much damaged beyond salvage, and people got in their cars and they drove up and down. Sometimes a house that had a second floor, the mattresses weren't wet, but they took everything out of the house, so even the dry mattresses on the second floor came down and could be used. And so people would drive, pick up a good mattress, check it out, be sure it had no bad stains, didn't smell too nasty, and bring it to the home to use. Mattress stores opened up all over Houston. We were the mattress queen city, I guess you could call us. And so mattresses struck my fancy. I said to myself, when have mattresses been so important to our lives? We take them for granted. We don't realize how important they are, but a good night's sleep if you're in a flood helps a lot. And then the last section was called Return. And this is a poem about birdland. And a lot of people don't realize that Houston has a lot of prairies still, and those prairies are often actually sort of swampy. They hold water, and that makes it good for growing rice. So we have rice farms out there, or we used to. And what would happen is all the birds from the north would stop off in the Katy Prairie to have a little vacation before they head to Central America and South America. Well, being Houston, what happened? We put concrete on it. We now have a mall. That mall takes up over 450 acres of prairie, and that prairie actually was the sponge that soaked up the water to protect the city.
I would like to thank all the people who made this week happen and all of us who showed up. It wouldn't be the same without us. My name is Holly Rainwater, and I have lived in Ohio for about a quarter of a century, but I grew up just down the road in Statesville, North Carolina, or Statesville, as we say in these parts. It's always good to be in the land where people talk like I do. I'm here with my husband, Kevin, who is thinking about spending the evening with Michael Dillon Welch, until I said, what does Michael Dillon Welch have that I don't have? So he went next door and got the handouts. And this is my book, our book. It's called The Curve of Her Arm. It's by Robin Mullet and myself. It was published by Diane Borsnick in Cleveland, Night Ballet Press. She creates beautiful books. She commissioned the artwork. It's by Becky Hernandez. The book includes both haiku written by me and free verse poetry written by Robin. And all of the poetry and the haiku in the book is about the practice and the art of Qigong. So usually when I have read from this book, I feel like I have to explain haiku and Qigong, but tonight I don't have to explain haiku. So Qigong is an ancient healthcare practice, a wellness practice from China. And it focuses on gentle movement, breath work, and mindfulness or visualization. So when you practice Qigong, you stand and you pretend like there are roots growing out of the bottom of your feet. And these roots connect you with the earth, and they draw energy up from the earth into your body. You also visualize that you've got a silver thread coming out of the top of your head that reaches all the way up into heaven and connects you to heaven and brings that energy also into your body. So while you're practicing, you are gathering energy from the earth, gathering energy from heaven, and you're circulating this big energy from the universe in your own small universe of your body. So when you practice Qigong, you learn to lift your arms like willow branches, and you learn how to embrace the moon. And you learn the strength and the flow of waves rolling up on the shore. When you practice Qigong, you become aware of a quiet, calm stillness at the center of your being that you may not have known you had. And you become aware of your own creatureliness. There are a lot of movements in Qigong that focus on deer and bear and snake. And perhaps most importantly, for the times in which we live, when you practice Qigong, you learn you feel in a very visceral way your connection to every other thing in the universe. So you can probably already see, because you know what haiku is like, how the two really go together. There's this constant juxtaposition between your small self and the larger universe, and also the juxtaposition between what you're bringing, your sadness or your grief or your harriedness, what you bring to the practice, and then what the practice gives you in return. There's also the nature imagery and just the flow and the way it saves me every day. So I have this fantasy of this being the next big thing. You know, we have Haibun and we have Haiga. So this is going to be the new thing, and we're going to call it Chiku. So I would like to show you what it looks like. And I think what I'm going to do, because I don't have a movable microphone, I'm going to share some of the haiku with the microphone, and then I'm going to step up here and show you how it looks with Qigong. So each movement in the, each poem in the book starts with a movement. Tree stance. A woman's feet firmly planted. Spring rain. Women practice empty and full. Painting a rainbow, the curve of her arm. Searching tiger, a woman narrows her gaze. Snake creeps down, a woman willing to shed her skin. Summer hillside, women with cloud hands. Harvest time, the sun and moon in her hands. Tree stance. A woman's feet firmly planted. Spring rain. Women practice empty and full. Painting a rainbow, the curve of her arm. Searching tiger, a woman narrows her gaze. Snake creeps down, a woman willing to shed her skin. Summer hillside, women with cloud hands. Harvest time, the sun and moon in her hands. share one more. This is linked, no it's not. It's a renge. It's a solo renge. Always have to ask, now what's a renge? What's a... and if I'm doing a workshop Saturday morning and Sunday morning, bright and early, 8 a.m. And if you come, I will teach this to you. It's called Turning Toward the Moon. Evening sky, women with their heads full of stars. Big Dipper turning her arm longer than it is. 100 days, the constellations beneath a woman's feet. Turning toward the moon, women's bodies waxing and waning. Earth and heaven, the length of her spine. Plucking stars, a subtle shift in the tides. Thank you.
Nice to be here. Good to see all your faces. I'm going to be reading from Scratches on the Moon, which is my latest book, and it's all Haibun. Chopped liver. Our old VW breaks down on Route 80 in Parsippany, New Jersey. Within seconds, a blonde surfer type stops in a red Porsche, asks if we want a lift. Let's get in, I say to my boyfriend. You go, I'll stay with the car. The driver shakes his head in disbelief before stepping on the gas. New pond angel, the indifference of the goldfish. Working girl blues. Payday is tomorrow, but I'm hungry now. Too proud to ask Mom for a handout. Roommates all in the same rut. With a hanger, I try to fish for my piggy bank slot. A $20 bill, but no luck. A neighbor in the next flat loans me his hammer. I treat him to a burger, onion rings and strawberry pie, but refuse his goodnight kiss. New dresses in my closet, price tags still on. I want to go home. It's nearly dusk. I want to get out of this crazy town where even the hotel receptionist is too busy to help. My smartphone needs recharging and I feel utterly lost. I ask the man on the street for the best place to wait, since not many cabs are passing by. He points to a sycamore-lined street a few blocks up, where a light-haired man on a scooter, motor scooter with sidecar is parked. I comment on the vehicle's unusual color. He has never heard of celadon. I tell him it's a greenish pottery glaze that originated somewhere in ancient China. I explain I'm looking to flag a taxi. He says he can call Uber, or even better, offer me a lift. The gold maple leaves barely holds on as we make our way onto a winding country road. He tells me this is his lonely lane. And just as he enunciates lonely, I get a creepy feeling up my spine. Somehow I manage to eject myself from the sidecar. I run up the slope in a pencil skirt and 3-inch heels to spot where 2 Persian women at a fruit stand are packing away pomegranates. I tell them, I'm trying to find my way home, but they don't speak English. Far down the hill, lines of cars speed along the freeway like strands of a diamond necklace. Light years away, the Pleiades blinks on and off. Fallen star, dressed in antique lace and ribbons, strands of pearls reach to her waist. She looks like Bette Davis in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Her skin is ghostly white, lips and beyond smeared with fiery orange lipstick. Under her left eye, there's a mole painted in the shape of a heart. Hair dyed to a shade of anthracite, She's happy to be the center of attention on this busy Kyoto street. Lunchtime crowd, a rhinestone pin catches the light. Too much champagne. As I often do at these crowded gatherings, I take breaks, go out for air. I've taken this walk several times and know my way back to the hotel, a hotel whose name I can't remember, but this particular evening, I find myself in neighborhoods which don't feel familiar at all. I try to backtrack, walk up a flight of stone steps, and realize this is not right. Dusk is about to fall. I enter a one-room restaurant filled with women who all resemble Julia Child. In passable French, I explain, I'm lost. My voice trembles, as do my hands. I dig into my purse for a slip of paper or a receipt that might prove something useful. There's nothing there but a blank notepad and tube of red lip gloss. I ask a cook with flour on her nose for a telephone directory. Perhaps if I can scan through a list of hotels, it might spark a memory, but there is no such book. One of the women who used to live in New York agrees to walk with me in hopes of locating the quiet side street where my colleagues are now having dinner. Instead, we find ourselves at a lookout where the sky holds countless stars. The beauty overwhelms me, but only until I remember I'm in trouble. The thought of roaming these streets alone is terrifying. My companion, whose name hasn't yet been revealed, offers to put me up for the night. She says her couch is comfortable. Her face looks kind and she seems sincere. What choice do I have? Wanted poster, a terrorist with sanpaku eyes. Everybody know what sanpaku is? Okay, it's eyes that float in the white of the eye. Okay. Usually in Chinese medicine it means the person is possessed. This is a dream. Parallel universe. While looking at me cross-eyed, the Chinese woman I'm staying with scoops rice with tiny shrimp onto my plate. I guess after 3 days I smell like a rotting green. I take the hint and announce I'll be taking the next plane out of Shanghai. Her daughter begs to go with me, says she wants to start a new life in America. There's nothing for her here. Her mother doesn't object. In fact, she seems relieved to have one less mouth to feed. The girl insists on taking along a blue crackled koi pot that once belonged to her grandmother. The few pieces of thin cotton clothing she owns are thrown inside. Don't ask how the woman is permitted to board the plane or why she isn't questioned at border control. But here we both are, a day later in Manhattan, where I cash a check for $200, the only money I have in this world. It's getting foggy. Cabs are few. I hear my neighbor's peacock shriek. Chocolate coins for breakfast and a tin of sardines. Who can a little girl trust? Grandma made it from Uncle Bill's old umbrella, the skirt I twirl in every day after school, with dull Ruthie in my arms, the tortoise shell nib still attached, the skirt in which I serve tea to my invisible friends under the plum tree, the skirt I wear on walks through hillside briars, where I pick berries and long-stemmed violets to take home to my mother. It doesn't bother me when a hole the size of a quarter appears in my blue umbrella skirt, but it does annoy my mother, who calls me a gypsy and says my piece of clothing is a dirty rag. She says I look like a little gypsy, but I keep on twirling just like the ballerina on my music box. On a quiet afternoon, as mother, aunt, and grandma sit chatting under a tree, Grandma beckons me over with a wave. She's the first to stick her finger in the hole, tearing the silk. Then mother and aunt join in, ripping my skirt to shreds. I run to my bedroom sobbing, clutching the tattered silk pieces that hang from my waistband. I can still hear the three of them cackling. Childhood seesaw, touching the last trace of its yellow paint. I'm going to read one more because my breath is not holding out too good. Dark figure. James Vanderhoof is built like a Hulk. His eyes are a piercing Nazi blue. Far from being a whiz kid, he wears plaid woolen shirts tucked snugly into workman's jeans. No girl is safe around him. During lunch breaks or recess, he chases the girls and hugs us until we can hardly breathe. Even though we scream, none of the boys are big or strong enough to come to our rescue. We dread being in the same class as James, knowing as soon as the teacher is out of sight, he'll come after us. He's the kind of kid who'd probably attack the principal if he were disciplined. Toward the end of the school year, a new girl appears on the scene. I say girl, but she's built like a woman. She has that look like she's been around. She wears skinny jeans with cuffs and form-fitting sweaters with cool neck scarves. Her blonde haircut is in the style of a duck's ass, unlike the rest of us who wear ponytails and page boys. Priscilla is, as they say, stabbed. The moment she walks into the classroom, she zeroes in on James, gives him her flashing white smile. On the bus that evening, she asks me to pass him a note. She wants to meet him in the hay barn near her house after dark. I can't say for sure, but Priscilla may be an angel sent to protect the weaker among us from one wild and horny monster. Blackberries, the unseen bruises of childhood. Scratches on the Moon will be in the bookstore tomorrow. Unfortunately, Mercury being retrograde, the back cover turned out to be fuzzy. So I'm giving you a discount on the book. I think I have like a dozen copies that will be in the bookstore. But it has been corrected and it's on Amazon when ordered. Also available on Kindle. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
My name is Bill Kenny. My book's been in senior admission. It's available downstairs. So maybe first a little background. Indian summer. Was I ever the man I used to be? I know, looking at your faces, there was a single guy in this room, apart from me, whoever, confronts one's present incompetence by saying, I'm not the man I used to be, but, I used to do that until I wrote this poem. But enough about the man I used to be. The man I am today, a member of this community. My poem, Rejected. I now see every flaw in yours. That's community. And we can't just restrict ourselves to poetry and art all the time. Something you might see on a sign somewhere. Clothing, optional. My fear of water and women. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Senior admission. I used to be an adult. Those were the days. As we go along, the early poem, the first poems are focused in variations on the theme of the individual. Then, secondly, on the couple. Third, on the family and close friends, that kind of group. And then, more broadly, social grouping. So we're about to move on. We're moving on here, sort of to the couple here. Moonlit lake. The parts of her I can't reach. And it's not just your lover, my lover. We have friends who have lovers. My friend's lover, she asks if I can keep a secret. I don't know. Now, you remember when 60 was the new 40? I mean, that already was a long time ago. We've advanced beyond that. And I was reading not too long ago an article in the New York Times about the new ways of grouping people by age and the various labels that were being given to ages between 65 and 80 and that sort of thing. And then we got to the point where the age in question was 85. And the verdict was, the classification was 85 and beyond is old. I was 85 when I wrote the poem about Terri. Old, the desire to desire. I don't really know if I want any of that stuff. This is the halfway point in the book, and I think it's time for an honest statement to the reader. Full disclosure, there are some things I'm not telling you. And then we move to, as I said, the family and friendships, that sort of thing. Natural history. The child asks if dinosaurs go to heaven. The child in question was my grandson. And he was a couple of years ago, so he was a little bit younger then. Just a couple of weeks ago, he went to the Museum of Natural History in New York for a big Tyrannosaurus Rex, T-Rex show. He's still a dinosaur buff. I don't know if he has worked any closer to the answer to his question, which I certainly couldn't answer for. And then just to be fair to both of my grandchildren, my granddaughter, a little bit the older of the two, and this too was written a couple of years ago. Summer sunset. My granddaughter asks me if I'm old. She was looking through the book the other day. She said, "Did I really say that?" You did, kid. A smile from the girl his mother warned him about. Graduation day. School's out, kids. I'm about to read a poem that is unfair to my grandmother. I'll explain. Grandmother's house. The upright piano no one ever played. My grandmother was a very nice lady. She did have an upright piano. No one played it. My grandmother, though, well, I don't know. I'm Irish by ancestry. I don't know what county the Kennys came from because they came so long ago. This grandmother was American born, American educated, a college graduate. On the other side, straight off the boat. And so when I went to see Grandmother Kenny, I always felt a little bit intimidated. That somehow something, it wasn't quite as good. It wasn't her fault though, but anyway, the upright piano, no one ever played. Maiden aunt. She keeps the secret of her preserves. Strawberry preserves and raspberry preserves, other kinds of preserves. Her suicide. The church, full of people. I think I know. Anybody hear you? Think you know? Waiting for a call from the son who never calls. Mother's Day. Being fair to mothers. Variation on a theme. Same-sex wedding. His father gave him away years ago. The word you may have heard, undocumented. Undocumented. He shows me pictures of his children. There are documents, and there are documents. Imagine now a questionnaire or a form to be filled out in preparation for something or other. That's what the first word. Race. Feeling vaguely guilty as I check white. Feeling vaguely guilty as I check white. Autumn chill. My people are those people to some people. The mood in that might be explained by the fact that the autumn was the autumn of 2016 and the poem was written in the month of November, a couple of days after Election Day, as a matter of fact. Wedding announcement. All those years we didn't ask, and they didn't tell. Remember, don't ask, don't tell? We all did, actually, for many, many years. This poem is a 3-line poem, but the second line is silent. On a page that's indicated by an ellipsis, I will just be quiet to the count of 3. Starving children. Switching channels. Which of course is one way of dealing with the problem, isn't it? And to conclude, actually, I have a poem on a theme, and I was going to read it at this point, but I came across another poem written well before this one on a similar theme, and I'm satisfied they're completely different poems. I'm not at all sure that I ever saw the other one, but although it's going to stay in the book, instead of reading it, I'm going to read to you a poem I've just recently composed on a similar theme. Drowsy. My death poem can wait.